Hey Nadia,
Hello.
how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Um, you know that back at home, all the kids have found out pretty much what colleges they've gotten
Hmm.
into. It's
Yeah.
April 1st, and for the most part, schools have sent out their acceptances. Have you
Yeah.
been hearing about it from over there, from college?
I mean, only from Lucy, my sister. Um, I mean, I feel like that's my only connection to someone that's a senior in high school. But other than that, I would say I just like stalking the Instagram pages and just looking. I mean, it's still kind of early on, though. A lot of people are still deciding.
Yeah. So, um, I wanted to talk a little bit about that college decision situation, the applications, the acceptances, rejections, and await lists, and then how you made a decision. And now reflecting back, being that it's your second semester of your second year of college, what you think about that whole process.
Hmm.
So, I feel like it's a kind of important conversation for our audience because they're young, some of them in college, some of them in high school, and then their
Yeah.
parents. And it's kind of like cool to get an inside scoop of one person's perspective.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, So the applications, I hated. I hated them a lot, a lot, a lot. And I feel
What
like
did you
that's
hate
like
about it?
I just don't really like essays, writing essays that much. And I feel like a lot that's not like an original thought to have. I feel like a lot of people don't really like the applications, but yeah, I just the essays are not my forte. And for me personally, like my I can't remember the name for it, but my like main essay took me a long time to write. I
Your
think I
personal
like
statement.
yeah, my personal statement. I had written like a whole I had a college counselor and wrote a whole draft. And by the end of it, it was totally different. Like I had to change the whole thing basically. The ideas were the same, but the actual essay, like the entire thing was changed. And so I did not like that process. And then not only that, like you have like supplementals and stuff for UCs and all that, which is really not
But you can
fun.
understand why you have to do all of this to get
Yeah,
into a school, right?
totally. Totally. I just hated it. And I feel like a lot of people don't really like it too, especially senior year when you kind of just want to chill and um that's not really what like you don't really have that option if you're doing all these applications. And I feel like especially in the Bay Area, it's like everyone's applying to literally everything. So you kind of feel like you can't just apply to a couple schools, which also they're pretty competitive. So it wouldn't be in your favor to only apply to a couple if they were like hard to get into. Um, so I just felt like I was doing a lot of applications at a time of my um, academic career, I guess, where I didn't really want to be doing work. But
I
in
mean,
the end,
alternatively, you could have taken the option of not doing any college
yeah,
applications and gotten a
totally.
job or go to community college. Why
Yeah.
did you not choose to do those things?
Um, well, I just feel like I always knew I wanted to go to college. I mean, I always knew it was an option to have. I knew those were other options, but I didn't necessarily consider them options for me because I always knew I wanted to go to like a 4 year college, which now I'm in college for 5 years. But um, yeah, I always knew I wanted to go to college, so I didn't like take those really into consideration. I would have if I didn't get into the ones I wanted to or that stuff. But in the beginning of the application process, I wasn't really thinking about those things. And then I applied early decision to Barnard, which is the all girls college that's connected to Columbia. Um, And it's a great school. It's really hard to get into, which is part of the reason why I applied early decision. But in the end, it wasn't really the right choice for me. And so after I submitted the application, I kind of regretted it a little bit. Not because I thought it was a bad school, just because I wasn't sure, how I would fit in there. I don't know. In that moment, I didn't really know why I had picked that school specifically for early decision over other schools, apart from the fact that I was told that it would help me get in. And then, that connected with the fact that I was scared to get rejected. And then in the end, I got deferred, and I feel like that was a weight lifted off of my shoulders, because I didn't have to go, I didn't get, which is kind of terrible to say, but I didn't get in, so it wasn't binding. But there was still the option that, I might get in later, which felt
for the people that are listening that don't know what it means to apply early decision, it means that you submit your application early. And with that application, you're telling the school that if they allow you admittance to their school, if they offer a spot for you, that you are going to take it. You are going to withdraw your applications to the other schools that you might want to apply, that you might have already applied to, and you're definitely going to go to that school. And I think that schools like to see those type of applicants, and maybe like to give spots to the people that do early decision, because it shows that the person really likes that school. And if a person really likes that school, then maybe they'll be a better contributor to that school. And it also guarantees that if they give you a spot, you're going to say yes, which I think schools care about. Having a good yield, meaning they offered a certain number of spots and a high percentage of the people that they offered spots to said yes. It looks good when they let people in, and then the people say, yes, I want to take it, And so I think that's why, I'm not a college counselor, or I don't work at an admissions office in a college, but that is my interpretation of why early decision might be advantageous to people whose applications are ready to submit. But yeah, so why? I have a feeling about why you did early decision for Barnard. I think you felt pressure from your family.
Well, I don't think it was from my family. I feel like it was more from college counselors. I feel like from what I can remember, my family didn't really want me to go to New York. And I don't know, I guess maybe it was pressure in another way of I wanted to go. I wanted everyone to know that I was serious about it. But I don't know. I feel like early decision in general, it can be all those things. You could get in, but also sometimes people are really passionate about that school, so they only really want to do that one application. And some schools, they don't, what's it called? Take early decision applicants as, an advantage. So it really depends. But
so that was the first school that you heard back from, and it was a deferral, not quite a rejection.
Oh, actually, I think I heard back from somewhere else first.
Where did you hear?
I heard back from San Diego State. And I think San Francisco State, which is the Cal states, and those applications are a little bit less time consuming. You just press a couple buttons and fill in your information. But I think I heard from those places first, and then I heard from Barnard. And so when I got the application, when I got deferred, I felt this sense of relief, which I knew I shouldn't be feeling, but then it kind of made me, ready to hear from the other places. And because I had gotten acceptances to others, a couple of schools already, it felt, it wasn't as scary. It wasn't oh, I don't know if I'm gonna get in anywhere. And then
did you ever believe that you were never gonna get into college? Did you have a thought in your head at all? What if I don't get into any colleges?
No, it wasn't I felt pretty confident that I could get into a college. I just didn't know if it was the one that I wanted it to be. And then I would say the rest of the schools kind of trickled in. I feel like the majority of the schools, apart from the UCs, I did end up getting into, um, except for like NYU, and I honestly can't even remember where I applied anymore. I didn't get into BU either. I don't know. There was just like a few schools I didn't get into, and then it, and then I didn't get into a few UCs. And in the grand scheme of things, I was pretty happy with the results that I got. It was a lot. Um, I mean, it could have been a lot worse, and a lot of people did experience that. But what was hard for me was that once I got all my applications in, or my acceptances and rejections and all that stuff, it kind of showed me which ones I was kind of hoping to get and which ones like I didn't and like didn't end up getting.
Were you hoping to get them because you wanted to go to that school and you liked that school, or are you hoping to get them because you felt like it symbolized that you achieved something?
Because I wanted to get into that school. I feel like I had that sense of achievement with like the other applications, but specifically for NYU and Berkeley. And I'm not sure if it's because I just got a rejection or because like I really wanted to get in, but those are two schools that like I thought about when I was younger that I would be going to, and then I didn't end up getting in, and I was like kind of hurt by that. But then in the end, and then it kind of had to, I shift my thinking into other schools. I don't know why I don't know. I guess I was just overconfident. But like I just thought, oh, I think that'll be an option. I'll be able to choose between these things. And that didn't end up being the case. But thankfully I got into a lot of other great schools. And for me specifically, I was choosing between obviously Northeastern, and UCSB, American, and University of Washington in Seattle, which are like schools in like four different, like very different places.
You mentioned UCSD after you had already started Northeastern, when you weren't sure if you were happy abroad with Northeastern. You said
I don't
maybe I should
know
have
if
gone to UCSD.
I don't think it. I think it was more UCSB. I don't know if I ever like UCSD is a great school. I just never really saw myself there specifically. And I think also I ended up committing to Northeastern without really realizing it. I think when I got in, we like put the deposits down because I got in anyway, and I didn't want to lose my spot. But thank God I ended up going because I actually did commit to it basically by putting in both of those deposits.
So to back up
But
for context for people that are listening, specifically Nadia got into North NU in, which is like Northeastern University International, I guess is what
yeah,
the
and
in
I've
is.
talked about it before, like my like Greece experience. It was like my first semester of college was abroad.
Mhm.
And I got in specifically for that. Um,
And you
I
had to put your
couldn't,
deposit
yeah.
down because if you didn't put your deposit down, you might not have your choice of locations to study at. And your choices were like, I think Dublin and Thessaloniki and Oakland, right?
Yeah, and there might have been one more, but I can't remember. But yeah, those were my options, and I wanted to go to Greece, so we put the deposit down. Um, and I feel like I say this to people a lot. Like when I first, I don't know, in general, we didn't really look at that many, like tour that many colleges.
That's
Um,
because you were touring, you'd be touring
right,
during the pandemic.
right, exactly. That's what I mean. So from the ones that I did tour, Northeastern honestly it wasn't at the top. I don't know. I didn't really see it as an option for me until I got in, which was like definitely different than the rest of the schools that I applied to. And so I was kind of nervous about that. I didn't know if I was going to like it. But I think looking back on it now, like from my perspective right now, I would say that I don't regret my decision coming to Northeastern. I really like it right now. But I would say that I feel like I could have made the best of any situation at any college. I mean, I guess unless there were crazy circumstances, but I feel like I could have thrived at any of the colleges I was choosing between at the end. So yeah, I mean, I don't regret it though.
So now looking back, it's your second semester, sophomore year. If you had gotten into all the schools that you had applied to, I guess you wouldn't know what the other schools are like. But do you think you would still pick Northeastern if you could have, knowing what you know about Northeastern and knowing the very little that you know about the other schools, do you think you'd still pick Northeastern if you got into everything you applied to?
I mean, this is funny considering this is exactly what Lucy thought she was going to be choosing between two. But I think if I got into Berkeley, I would have a hard time deciding. I think, but also that's just because, like, you guys, my mom and my dad went there. So I feel like when I was younger, I always thought it was going to be an option. And then in reality, it didn't end up being the case. But I think I would have had a hard time deciding. I don't know if I would have chosen it, but I mean, it kind of clicked all the boxes that I wanted at that time of when I was deciding on where I wanted to go. It was on the East Coast. It was in a bigger city. I would get to study abroad. I mean, obviously, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I would get to be in Greece, and in that. And like I was choosing mostly between UCSB and Northeastern, and those are two very, very, very different schools. But when I asked, my friends that know me the best, they all told me that, like, obviously they know, like, UCSB is a really good school and a lot of people really want to be there just because it's on the beach. So why wouldn't you want to go, really? But they all told me that I should go to Northeastern. I think it just felt more of me at the time, and I think it still is. But yeah. I think I would be a different person if I went to UCSB.
Yeah, I would say, I guess it was a little unfair for your dad and I to like expose you as much as we did to Berkeley.
I wouldn't call it unfair. I think it was like definitely like the most fun part of not the most fun, but like a very fun part of my childhood. So I wouldn't be like, I wish you hadn't have done that. I think I wanted to experience that.
I mean, really what we were trying to say was we had so much fun in college.
Right.
It doesn't have to be Berkeley, but he and I both happened to go there and we had so much fun there.
Yeah.
And you had such great grades, better than we did. So we just assumed that would be an option for you.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of surprised when it wasn't. But in the end, I don't know if I also am just like making the best of it too, but I really do think that the experiences that you've had at the university that you're at have been really in line with what you needed and what you continue to need as a human growing and becoming an independent adult.
I agree. And I feel like I'm just biased now. I can't really like say this because I don't really know what it'd be like at a different college. But I do really think in the end this was the best choice for me. So yeah. And now Lucy's going, so
yeah, so now you're going to have...
I'm a trendsetter.
I know. When we toured Northeastern, when you were in high school, I was like, yeah, she's not going here. And now look, both of my kids are going to Northeastern.
I feel like I only said I didn't want to go there. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't really know why I didn't like the tour. I think it might have been the tour guide.
I think it might have been the tour guide because it was a guy who was totally nothing like you.
Okay, but I vividly remember him talking about his co-op working at a beer company, and now I'm like, wait, that's really cool. I think it was because we went to Boston first, and then we went to New York. So I was already waiting for New York. I like
Hmm.
already had my mind on that. So I don't know. I like wish, and also, I mean, as far as campus looks go, Barnard is way, way above Northeastern. So I mean, it's Columbia, so can't really compete.
Hmm. Well, living in Boston, I think, is also a great. So not only like your co-op and your study abroad, but the living in Boston, like Boston as a
Hmm.
city, is pretty cool for a young adult. You know?
Yeah, and I feel like now maybe this is a new goal. I just like really like that I get to experience living in a new city that's pretty different than home. I feel like that was important for me.
So, what about like, what kind of advice can you give the high school students? I mean, granted, this is like, you know, one person giving advice, but what advice would you give to the students that are trying to decide now? And mind you, I feel like a lot of kids got waitlisted at a bunch of places. So they
Mm,
are deciding, do I commit to what school do I commit to? And should I hold on to this hope that I'm going to get off of the wait list at these other schools? Um,
yeah.
or maybe some of them are feeling kind of like bad about where they got in and disappointed. Like, what is your advice to those folks?
I think I have a couple things. Well, one, I don't really know how the wait list works. Like, can you like commit to a school and still like you can commit to a school and still be on the wait list, right?
Right.
And if you
You
get in,
have
you
to kind of
can
commit to a school because
right.
pretty much you have to say yes or no, I think by the end of April, but you might not find out if you get off of a wait list until after
Mm-hmm.
April.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think for me, well, there's like a couple of things. I don't. I feel like one is don't set. I don't really know if I can like elaborate on it. But the first thing I think of thought of was like don't settle. Like if you, I feel like in if your gut feeling is like telling you that you might not really enjoy going to school there and you're just going because you didn't get in somewhere else, I don't know. Trust your gut. But I feel like a big thing for me was, not like trying to decide if I was going to choose a place based off like the reputation or like how other people thought of the college versus how much I really wanted to go there. Um, I think it's a very different story talking about Northeastern in the East Coast versus the West Coast. But like when I was applying, I feel like it still wasn't that big of a thing and not that many people knew about it. And like even you didn't really know that much about Northeastern. So it was, it almost felt like I was, not that it's like the underdog, but like I was picking something that nobody knew about and like I was unsure about too now because, I feel like in California you hear about the UCs all the time. So you
And
know
all
the
of your
reputation.
aunties and uncles were telling you of the places that you got into to go to University of Washington.
Right. Yeah. So I mean like there's that. Um, really like just thinking about why you're picking the school that you're picking and like going off of like you saying that my family wanted me to go to University of Washington. That's also a hard thing to navigate is, your friends and your family's opinion. I mean, in the end, they do have your best interest in heart, but like, if you think you're picking a school based off like what other people think, um, you just might want to take a step back and see if like that's really the choice you want to make. But I would say my main thing is that it'll it'll all work out. I feel like I said before, I think I would have made the best out of any situation that I was put in and I think I would have had fun at whatever college. Like if I chose a different college, I think I would have had the same amount of fun just, in a different way. I think if you take the opportunity for what it is and, not take advantage of it or I mean, take advantage of it, not like,
Take it for granted.
Just letting it, take it for granted. It's, I mean, I don't know we're trying to go with this, but it'll all work out.
Right. And there's also like, okay, let's talk about some other things. There's also money, right?
Yeah.
So some people are making decisions not necessarily based on their favorite school, but which school gave them the most amount of financial assistance, merit aid, because it makes,
I feel like,
it makes the family be able to afford it, makes them able to afford it.
Yeah.
So I guess you can't really speak to that, but do you have advice on that? I guess it's still just
really
make the best out of
it. But yeah, it would be to make the best out of it. I did get a scholarship for Northeastern, so that, I mean, it's still really expensive, but taking that into consideration. But if money is part of the equation, you can't really avoid that. And I feel like if I were like Northeastern does cost a lot, and if I were to have picked a less expensive school, just thinking about like other opportunities later on, maybe if there is more money for you yourself to spend, it's like, just because you pick one place doesn't mean the other place isn't an option, later in life. Or even like, it doesn't like close opportunities picking a school that costs like less. I feel like you can gain the same amount of skills and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, you're getting your education and you're getting your degree. Okay, so some students at your school that after 1 year at your school, they applied to try to get into other schools, and some of them did, and they left. I don't know if you know anybody that applied as sophomores to get into Northeastern and then started Northeastern as a sophomore. But I guess those are examples of, you can try one school for a year and see how it goes, and it doesn't mean that that's the path that you're going to take the whole way. What do you know about the people that switch schools after their first year of college?
I had one friend from Greece that switched schools to go to NYU, and I mean, her reasoning was pretty valid. She really wanted to go. That was her like dream school before, and she didn't get in. And if you really feel like that passionate about a school, you're gonna like take your chances anytime that you can. So I felt like that decision for her wasn't like a surprise to me, like to apply. And now, I mean, I feel like I should probably reach out to her more, but I think she's having fun in New York. I have heard from other people just that, maybe she had been saying that she probably could have stayed at Northeastern, but sometimes things take time. Like settling into college is like, can be a long process. I feel like it took me 1.5 years to really feel comfortable on campus, and so sometimes it just takes a little while. But I guess if you need to go, then transferring is always an option and not super difficult.
All right, so now your sister just went through the process, applying to a bunch of schools, got some nice opportunities and also some disappointments, and she's chosen to go to Northeastern, and she'll be joining you. Do you have any feelings on your sister being at school with you?
I'm really excited, actually. I think it's going to be, I mean, not that we're going to be going through this like hand in hand, but I think it's going to be really fun. And I think maybe it's just more like I'm excited for her to experience what I've experienced, and also in her own way, because she's just so different from me. But yeah, I'm excited for her, and I'm excited that she feels excited about a school. So, and she's going to Prague, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah. So I, as a mom, like if I put away my thoughts about the price of 2 kids in private school. I'm really excited that you guys are going to be together, because it makes me feel good that you guys can support each other if you need it. And also logistically, it helps. Like if you guys need to store your things in Boston, or if you need to take a taxi home.
Storage spaces.
Storage spaces, airplane flights together, taxi rides together to the airport, little things like that. Like, and then I only have one school to visit while you guys are both there. So that
and you
makes
don't have to
things
pick who to visit.
Yeah, I don't have to pick who to visit. And I also feel so relieved that that you like the school enough that you've been talking to her in such a way that she wants to go to the school. So that tells me that you're pretty happy there.
I mean, obviously there are things that I complain about too, but for the most part, I've only had good things to say. So I'm glad that came across. And also I like talking about like being with each other and being able to support each other. I feel like, I mean, for me right now, that sounds really good. I feel like after our last podcast episode, I was like thinking about just how like homesick I am. And then, you guys all went to Tahoe without me, and that was really great to see and super fun. So that was good. And I feel like I'm just homesick. So just thinking about having another family member here is nice.
It's good to have a family member there, or it's good that somebody else isn't like doing the stuff with your family that you wish you were doing.
Good to have a family member here.
Yeah. Okay. So I talked to a mom whose child is deciding between University of Wisconsin at Madison and Northeastern and UC Santa Cruz. 3 very, very, very different schools. So let's take away UC Santa Cruz for a second and just talk about Madison and Northeastern. Like, I think one big concern that people have about Northeastern is that it feels like what you would call maybe a transient school, where all the different people in the different grades are doing different things. Like you have 2 roommates that are taking class while 2 of you guys are in co-op. You have one friend that's going to study abroad this summer and the rest of you guys aren't. Everyone's like doing all kinds of different things. You used to be on a 4-year plan. Now you're on a 5-year plan. And so there's a concern that there's not a lot of community on campus. And on top of that, that if you start in another country, that you're going to have a hard time, like you're going to feel like you missed out on all of the freshman things. So what are your thoughts about community and missing out on freshman things at Northeastern?
So I have heard Northeastern like be called like an airplane school just because like people are coming and going, and that obviously was a concern for me in the beginning, but just because like if you look up Northeastern reviews on online, that's what people will say. But honestly, like I kind of like it. I feel like it feels so weird just thinking about it when you're not there, but being here and having been here for a couple semesters, it is so normalized. Like me in another school having switched to 5 years would be kind of weird, but I feel like it's honestly a 50-50 type thing. And, like I honestly don't feel like it's that weird. And like my roommate going away for like that summer semester is so normalized also. I feel like it's almost weird if you don't go study abroad here. And so like it's just things like that. I think for me personally, I kind of like that now. It is hard that sometimes I don't see my roommates as much, but I just like everyone gets to do their own thing, but we all have the opportunity to do it at some point, and we all end up in the same spot in the end and have access to all the same opportunities. So that like for me feels good, but it's definitely not the most traditional college experience. So that is hard for people to maybe think about or even experience firsthand while at Northeastern. And as far as community, I feel like um, you can find community anywhere. I feel like the community that people are looking for that Northeastern doesn't really have would be probably what is connected to like football and like basketball and all that types of things. But I mean, I feel like Northeastern has a pretty big hockey community. So if you want that, like that's what you have. And I don't know. There's so many schools around us. If you want to go to a BC football game, like you can. And like you have that option available. But I feel like if you want to find a community, it's not hard to. There's just so many different like people from different backgrounds and all that stuff here. So it's not, I don't feel like it's too difficult. As long as you're, looking for it.
I think that people, they see college on in the movies and they picture themselves sitting on the lawn playing frisbee or reading in the library with a bunch of people from other school, or like parties in the dorms together. And that is what they picture as far as like community. And then also the football and the Greek system. Yeah. So I know that there's not a big focus on Greek system. I think Greek life.
I honestly, like you go on a tour here and they say it isn't, but like it kind of is. I feel like, I guess if you want to be involved in it, then you can be, and if you don't, it's easy to avoid. Definitely not the same kind of pull as other schools, but I would say that there is like that influence on social life here. And then what did you say before?
Oh, playing frisbee and library.
Yeah. I honestly like that is Northeastern, but that's also a lot of colleges. I think people get scared just thinking about like nobody being in the same place at the same time, but like there's still always people on campus. I feel like that is definitely something that happens all the time, and not all like a option for you if that's like what you enjoy. If you don't want to go in co-op or study abroad or do any of those, you want to stay 4 years, like that's an option for you, and you don't have to take the other extra opportunities.
I guess it's good because the things are there. Yeah. The things that people want are there, but you're not locked into it. Like in some schools, from what I hear, like Greek life really runs the like social scene. And so in your school, there is Greek life and you can let it run your social scene, but you can also totally have a life without it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's kind of my personality in general. I want to be in, but then I want to be out. So like I like that aspect of it, but obviously it's not for everyone. And, thinking about my NUN experience, coming back from NUN, there is a divide. How can there not be? Like, you have a whole group of people that spent time together at Boston and a whole group of people that, spent 3 months in like Florence or Greece or Prague or wherever. So you build a sense of community there. So it's hard to have those communities kind of mesh together. But I would say now it's pretty meshed together, I would say. I would say coming back, it was an issue, but I had a group of friends that I made in Greece, so it wasn't detrimental to my social life or a sense of community at school. So,
but maybe if you hadn't found your people when you were abroad and you were trying to find them once you got to Boston, then it's a little bit trickier.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know.
And then you joined the gymnastics team sophomore year. Yeah. So that was another community.
Yeah. So I have that. So I had like my little NUN community, and then I had gymnastics, and now I have my meshed together community of NUN and like just everything, which I feel like is nice to have. And
then you're probably making friends on your co-op too, right?
Yeah. that's been nice. I mean, I work with 9 other, it's all girls. I work with, or I think it's 8. They're all really nice. And
They're
I
all
think
Northeastern students working at the same place you are?
the co-op
Mm-hmm.
students, everyone else is, wherever, but the co-op students are all Northeastern. I mean, that's really fun. A lot of them, they're all 3rd or 4th years, so I wouldn't necessarily have been like friends with them like just in classes or stuff like that, just because they are older than me. But it's been nice to, have that sense of community at work, and then, also be able to like get advice from them and stuff like that. So I don't know. I've just been really enjoying my time here, but I feel like talk to me in a different situation when I'm a little bit annoyed and there's like things that I'm annoyed, like don't like about it. And I can totally see how it wouldn't be the right school for a lot of people, but I don't know. I would still recommend it.
The woman earlier, you talked about how it's totally normal for someone to stay for 5 years, and anybody that's listening to this who's a parent and worried about paying for tuition for 5 years, what I had to explain to that mom was that, first of all, when you're on your co-op, we are paying for your rent and your school fees, but we're not paying for your tuition.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And that is a big relief, because it's like, oh my gosh, because it's hard to imagine that you'd be working and we'd be paying for your tuition, which is, I guess, what happened to me when I was in PT school. So it's not, it doesn't not happen. And then on top of that, on your co-op, you are getting paid. So during the time that you are on your co-op, we're also not giving you any sort of allowance. So there's that. And then as far as like 4 years versus 5 years, you at Northeastern pay, or we at Northeastern pay basically per unit. So you can spread them out and you'll still be paying for the same number of units. There are some schools that do their tuition like part-time tuition versus full-time tuition. And if you're paying for full-time tuition, you try to like take as many classes as you can during that semester so that you can get a lot of it done during that semester, because it's the same price. But for you, if you take more classes in a semester, you're paying for each of those classes.
Right. So it's helpful in that way. And I mean, it really depends on the major, but for my major, if I wanted to do 4 years, I'd have to stay for the summers, throughout the whole summer, if I wanted to do 2 co-ops. So essentially, 2 co-ops means you're not paying for a full year of tuition, but that gets spread into the summer semesters. So it's technically still 4 years, which is, and then I didn't want to take summer classes anymore.
You wanted a break.
So I switched to 5 years so that I didn't have to. So those classes that moved to the summer semester have now been moved to just an extra year, but still paying the amount that I would be paying if I did 4 full years of classes, or I guess 8 full semesters.
But you would have probably been able to graduate before 8 semesters, because you had so many AP credits, if you hadn't redone bio and if you weren't going to take your pre-med classes while you were in undergrad. Is that not right?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's not what I wanted to do. So I'm taking advantage of the classes that I have. And yeah, whatever.
Okay. Well, this was a longer episode than I had expected. I think it'd probably be good for anybody that's maybe making college decisions, or specifically if they're thinking about Northeastern. We should probably say that we're not representatives of Northeastern. We're just talking about your personal experience. Yep. All right. Anything else that you want to say to the students that are trying to figure out what college that they're going to pick?
No. I mean, honestly, have fun. I feel like this is a really fun time of senior year, and also really exciting to be planning, where you're going to be for the next 4 or 5 years. So, I don't know. Have a little fun.
Nice talking to you, Nadia.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.